Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to jump into our Week 10 start sits. I apologize for our miss last week. Sam and I have been super busy outside and away from our videos. I started a new job. Sam was closing big deals. We were just really tied up. So we're going to jump into this week and just kick it back off with our Week 10 picks. I'm going to send it over to you, Sam, for the quarterbacks.
Yeah, for quarterbacks this week, if you had asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have probably confidently bet you like over $1,000 that I would have never picked this QB as a start this year. But week 10, we are starting, and I'm actually doing this in a league as well, starting Daniel Jones against the Panthers this week. Daniel Jones is coming off a 24-point performance this past week here. He's getting it done on the ground. He's been putting up like 30 to 50 rushing yards most weeks. And he might be the best goal line option for the Giants currently. I think Tracy is a good running back, but he's not a goal line guy. He's like a smaller frame, like receiving back type. And I think against the Panthers, we might see another big Malik Neighbors week. We might see some more rushing yards for Daniel Jones. If this goes poorly, I think I'm just done with these videos forever. But we are starting Daniel Jones against the Panthers in Week 10. As for our sit, this one's a little sad. Bo Nix has been having a great season so far and has been really underappreciated. I think partially just because of how well Jaden Daniels has played all year. But he's come off a 23, a 20, a 14, 29, and 17-point performances here. But this week he's playing the Chiefs, which I think they're one of the best defenses in the league. And when the Broncos have played really good defenses, in particular Pittsburgh and the Jets earlier this year, we were looking at 8-point and 6-point games for Bo Nix respectively. I just think that the Panthers will shut down the Broncos more so than even the Ravens did this past week, and I don't think Nix is going to be able to put a ton of yards or points against them.
Yeah, it's a stronger matchup in that scenario. The Chiefs' defense has been really good this year. All right, I'll jump into the running backs. This is not someone who I normally would ever start. Granted, he's had some good games this year, and that's Najee Harris on the Steelers. I don't know. He just has not been a good running back to me, even though everyone keeps calling him like a bell cow back since he's come into this league. He's been very hit or miss. But this week, he's going up against the Commanders with the third worst rushing defense in the league. I think that gives him a lot of legway to get on the field and get some good yards this week. I think it's going to be a lot of rushing from the Steelers, just overall because of how poor the Commanders' rushing defense is. For the sits, honestly, if you're starting either of them right now, I think it's kind of strange, even though I think a lot of people were high on ETN, including myself, going into this season. He's not 100%. People jumped on Bigsby. Bigsby's looked like garbage the last week or two. The Jags are playing the Vikings, and they are the number one rush defense in the league. So I'd be benching both Jags RBs this week if you can. I don't think you're going to see much out of them unless they get some goal line work. But the Minnesota rushing defense is far and away the best one in the league, and it's almost like not even close. So I would avoid those two.
Yeah, no, I love the Najee Harris call. I might use him in some like DraftKings lineups this weekend. I think that's a good one there. As for wide receiver, our start is going to be Debo Samuel, and unfortunately, it's not because he's done anything spectacular over the past couple of weeks here, but he was coming off a really bad case of pneumonia. The 49ers have just been off kind of as a whole.
Yeah.
But they're coming off a bye week here. They should be well rested. He should be ready to go. And the Buccaneers are I think they're the third worst passing defense in the league this year. And if you watched the Kansas City Buccaneers game last night, it was kind of funny watching the coin flip in overtime. As soon as Baker saw that they were not receiving the ball, he knew that game was over.
Yeah.
Because that defense is awful, and I think Debo and Kittle and company will have a good game this week. As for our sit, this is kind of pairing up with our Bo Nix sit call. We're going to be sitting Courtland Sutton this week. Rest of the season, this is a duo that I like a lot in starting lineups. But against the Chiefs, I just kind of want to pass on the Broncos as a whole. And Courtland Sutton's really the only other viable fantasy asset that you're even considering starting. So for this week, keep him on your bench, find someone else.
All right, let's move into tight ends, shall we? So tight ends, as we know, have been like a really, really, really fickle position this year. Some people have been hit or miss and managed to pull something out, but most of the time it's been pretty lackluster. However, I think our start this week is probably someone that's already on your guys' radar, and I think if you're not starting him this week, you're a fool, especially if T. Higgins is out. You should be starting Mike Gesicki this week. They are going up against the Ravens, whose pass defense is atrocious. They've been so bad. People wondering why the Ravens are losing. It's because their defense can't stop a pass. It's actually kind of embarrassing. So I'm expecting Mike Gesicki and Jamar Chase too to have an outstanding week this week. I was looking at the numbers. The Ravens have allowed 2,700 yards on the season. The next closest is at 2,500, and that's the Jags. And then it's the Bucks at 2,482. And they're tied for second in like TDs allowed, alongside all these other awful defenses like the Jags, the Bucks, and the Panthers. So it's pretty bad. So I'm expecting Joe Cool Burrow, who's been having a really good last 4 or 5 games after those first 3 games were put in the rearview mirror. I'm expecting it to keep going there. So if you got Gesicki on your bench, I picked him up this week in one of my leagues, and I'm going to be starting him. That and next with the sit, I think if you're starting him this week, you're probably a little bit of a fool. And that's Jake Ferguson on the Cowboys. I know people are probably generally usually starting him, but Dak Prescott is going on the IR if he hasn't already been listed as he is on the IR, which means he's going to miss 4 games. That means you're going to be getting either Cooper Rush or Trey Lance. Looking like it's going to be Cooper Rush. And they're playing our Birds. And our Birds' pass defense has been pretty good this year. They're sitting at number 4 in the league and yards allowed. I don't expect the Cowboys to get much in the air or on the ground either. I don't expect much from them at all this week. I think it's going to be a pretty easy game for us. So, yeah, I'd avoid Jake Ferguson if I were you. And I'm sorry, Cowboys fans, but your team is bad. So we'll see you guys next week for the next start sits. Have a good one.
Thanks in the Eagles, Kyle.